Hey, it's Tess. For those that don't know me, I'm a bariatric patient, very quickly entering my 10th year post-surgical. Just to say a bit about me, I started a BMI of over 60, lost half my weight. Continue on the journey because honestly, the journey's forever and I'm not all the way to where I want to be. But I was challenged to go live a few years ago and I continue to go live now. And I was thinking today about what did I want to talk about. And the idea is work smarter, not harder. And the reason that kind of came to me is I was looking at a book, and I'll read the first bit about this. It's about quantum leaps and about quantum jumping. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I was thinking about my journey and my life and where I've headed and where I think I'd be if I hadn't made the changes that I've made in the past, 5-6 years now. And I think that a lot of what I did early in my life is followed the patterns that were established before me. Not that anybody did anything malicious, it's just that the world that we live in did not remain the same, and so my approach could be different, and I didn't change fast enough. So I was looking at things that I've done differently in the past 5 or 6 years, and like different points in my life, and why I think that making change or being more open to learning what you thought, what may have worked in the past will not always work going into the future. And the best gift you can give yourself is to be open to new opportunities and new avenues to do life differently than what you have been living it, because there might be some better opportunities out there. So I'm going to start with a couple of quotes. The first thing, we've heard this all a million times before, work smarter, not harder. Then there was a Peter Drucker quote, and it said, efficiency is doing things right, but effectiveness is doing the right things. And I think about that a lot, even in the industry that I worked in. I worked in insurance companies, publicly held, privately owned, mutually owned. I worked auto, I worked in medical malpractice, I worked in property and casualty. I worked in all kinds of avenues of it. But what I found is that because it's such a highly regulated industry, change did not happen very often. And that probably perpetuated my fear of changing too quick. And I've had to learn to not fear changing quick and to make adjustments to what I thought my life was going to be, because where I was headed would have been a life that I honestly don't think I'd be here right now. And this idea of work smarter, not harder comes to me because for any that don't know, part of this journey for me in the past 5 or 6 years is I did write a book, Courage to Change, and it is on Amazon. So if you're interested, please run over there and grab a copy. But I think about prior to the past 5 or 6 years, even if I had an idea of writing a book, I never would have seriously did it. And it was the change in people that I'm around and the opportunities that were there and the pushes from people that I probably would have never met if I hadn't made changes that helped me to go into a different direction. And for that, I'll always be grateful, because I kind of think even in my early life, there were some little hints of doing things differently, but I didn't know how to do it, and I wasn't around the right people to do it. My grandmother tried to encourage me to write from the time I was in 5th grade. And it's almost funny because she kept saying, share the stories, share stories, share stories. And I always thought people aren't going to be interested in stories. But my book is principles that I've put into play in the past 10 years to change my life. And then there's always a little bit of a story, not a big in-depth part, but the principle I learned and where in my life I learned that principle. So I did share the stories ultimately. So she's probably smiling down because I finally took her advice and moved forward with it. But it made me think about what else has changed in my life. How have I made these changes going forward? How did I write a book? How did I find the person to help me get that together? And I started looking at, like, for me, I started attending online training programs, because when we went into that quiet time, that stay-at-home time, that don't connect with the world time, I wanted to do something productive with it. And as far as education or learning, I've always been an avid reader. From the time I was young, my family always joked that when things got to be too much, I'd go in my room, watch myself against the door, I'd have a book, and then they'd have to push me out of the way for it to get in the door. So I've always had a drive to learn, but I had to figure out how to take that drive to learn and apply it somewhere. And one of the things that came up during all this is I used to see training programs on TV or on, infomercials and all that, but I never resonated with any of them. And during lockdown, I found Doc V. He did a bariatric group, just trying to stay with people during the lockdown. He is actually getting ready to close this group. But then he connected me to Chris Nagel, who I'm working with now. But all of these things wouldn't have happened if I didn't open myself up to live life differently. So I actually wrote down the masterminds that I've attended since 2021. And there are 22 of them. And I thought, if I wonder how my life changed, it's because at 22 different events, and that's only the beginning of where my education came, but 22 events, I met people, I talked to people, I found out how they were living their lives, I figured out what they were doing to move forward, I took a look at what I was doing and could I do it differently and do it in a better way. And it was those 22 events and the hours and hours times my 22 events by 1,000, and that might be the hours I put into online education around the idea of becoming your own bank. And that's actually what I'm working with Chris Nagel's crew on now, is the Becoming Your Own Bank. And what that is actually utilizing an infinite banking concept, a process that was created over 100 years ago, where you can take control of your banking functions by the use of a specially designed whole life policy with a high cash value. So it's kind of a living insurance policy that has a death benefit attached to it. And again, I am starting helping people. I'm working with a team right now, and I've been learning, and I'm a life agent, and I'm an IBC practitioner student. So anybody who's interested in learning more about this amazing book, please send me a direct message and I'll get you more information, and I'll hold your hand through the process, because I myself had to look at ways to work smarter, not harder. And I started digging into this about over 5 years ago now, because I have 3 policies and 2 of them have gone into year 5 now. And there's a little bit of time. You figure during lockdown, it took me 1, I had to educate, and then 2, I had to go through underwriting and get the policy set up and learn the process. But again, I'd be happy to help anyone. Please send me a direct message and I'd be happy to get you started. There's a few that I've been talking to now, and I do reach out to people on a regular basis through another area. But if you want to learn more, please reach out. I'd be happy to help you. But what I started thinking about is work smarter, not harder. Would I have done this if I was going down the old path? And the answer is no. And the answer is because I thought I knew everything. I worked in the insurance industry for over 30 years, and I worked in the accounting department preparing regulatory statements, and I worked on the audited statements too, because it all came through our area. GAAP statements, we did those too, but there's only a few small differences. There's a few differences, but statutory, generally accepted accounting principles, and audited statements. So we worked on those, and I was at every different point in the process. At some point in my career, I was payables, I was collections, I was receivables, I was, at the very end of my career, I was preparing the regulatory statements, the big legal size 150-page documents, and making sure those got filed. So I had a hand in all areas of it. So when this idea of this infinite banking concept came into play, I thought I had to be a scam, because I would know about it, wouldn't I? How could they hide that from me for 30 years? Well, needless to say, it's a tool used by the rich, and it's not used by those of us because we were taught a different way. And I had to be open to learning a different way. And I'll tell you, I fought it, and I fought it very hard for a long time. And now when I saw how this can help so many people, I actually left my W-2 job, and I'm working in this arena now because I want to see more people have opportunities that I see. I wish I'd known about this 20 years sooner. But that got me down the path today of work smarter, not harder, and be open to working smarter. If you continue doing what you've always done, and I will say, because I work in the industry, right, and I still am because it's life insurance, but when you work in the insurance industry, it is a hard animal to change, because everyone gets caught in these routines. And I can remember looking at things, and I always think our computer systems in the insurance industry were very complex in a lot of ways, because what I would do with the financial statements is I would have all these different systems feeding into the statements. And then I'd have to do like higher level analytics to look for frequency or severity. Were there states? Was there a catastrophe? Was there a hurricane? Trying to analyze, because we did fluxes on the balance sheets or income statements. We would do fluxes to see big changes so we could identify movement, because you're talking lots and lots and lots and lots of activity, but you had to be able to explain, is this reasonable based on what we know? So, I mean, I was knee deep in it, which made me wonder how in the world could I have not known about this? But I was more property casualty, and I worked in medical malpractice for a period of time, because one of the second largest Catholic health system did a self-insurance program, and then we reinsured over the top of a certain amount. So I've had all kinds of experience in different areas, and I thought, why am I not familiar with this? And as I learned about it, it made me want to be part of helping to educate other people, because I feel with my background and my experiences and even my doubt of it in the beginning, maybe that would be helpful to other people as they want to try to move into it. But now, this idea of work smarter, not harder came to me younger in my life, because anyone who actually does read my book will read a little bit about a 300-mile bicycle ride that I've done a couple of times. And Make-A-Wish here locally does a 300-mile bicycle ride where you raise money to give Make-A-Wish children a dream come true, a wish. And what they do is any terminally ill children or chronically ill children are giving a wish, because they don't know what the outcome's going to be. But in any case, if it's a terminal or chronic illness, their life is going to be different than anyone else's, because you have doctor's appointments, you have treatments, you have to be out of school, you're trying to catch up. So they try to give them something, some form of hope to hold on to. So I rode in that bicycle ride 2 years, and I volunteered for it for 2 years. So it was about 4 to 5 years in total that I was involved in it. And the one thing I remember is when I was training for the 300 miles on the bicycle, one of the gentlemen, Stephen, he would always ride up to us, because there was a couple of us that we actually didn't even own bikes, and within 3 months we were riding the first one. And he would always ride up next to us, and he'd go, "Work smarter, not harder. Work smarter, not harder." And I can remember him saying that. So when I came up with this today, I thought, oh, that's really what it is in all of life. Work smarter, not harder. And then I picked up this book, U Squared, which is about making quantum leaps. And I read this first thing, and I remember this. I shared this probably a couple of years ago, but I think it's a good share now. And U Squared, it's about multiplying your personal effectiveness to quantum leaps. And we all want quantum leaps. And I thought this was a quick, easy read. And I thought I'm going to kind of share this because I liked what it had to say. And I thought it would be helpful going forward, even for myself as I readjust. But it made me think about what have I done in the past few years. And like I said, a lot of it is education, listening to stuff all day long, affirmations, journaling, meditations, going to 22 masterminds, listening to online training nonstop. And everything that I listened to, it wasn't television shows, it was educational materials. And that has been the driving force about my life changing, is the things that I consume are the things to move me forward. So this is a quote inside the book. If you do not expect it, you will not find the unexpected, for it is hard to find and difficult. And the very first chapter in this book is a true story, but I think it's really telling of why it's so important to try to reevaluate and to look at things. And I've said before, but my grandparents were born and lived on a farm. There was a farm in southern Illinois, and when they dated on horseback. And there weren't cars and television, no, things like that. But that my grandmother made it into 2 weeks into Y2K. So she went from such a totally different world, and that meant a lot of adapting to a different way of life. And I think sometimes we forget that what you did before may need to be changed as we go into the future. And that is why I'm so grateful that if we had to go, and I'm not going to say it was a great thing that we had to go through that period of time where we were all kind of locked into our homes, but if we were locked in, I'm glad that I took it as an opportunity to learn and to try to live my life differently. So this is a true story, and I thought this was a very picture, an idea to put a picture in your head so that you can think about why looking at things differently, like maybe you want to reach out to me and learn more about this becoming your own banker, but why it's so important. I just dropped the book. I'll get it after the live. But why it's so important to kind of live life differently. And this is a Quantum Leap book called U Squared. And this is a true story that opens the book. And it says, I'm sitting in a quiet room at the Millcroft Inn, a peaceful little place hidden back among the pine trees about an hour out of Toronto. And one of my best friends lives about an hour outside of Toronto. So I'm going to have to ask her where this place is. It's just past noon, late July, and I'm listening to the desperate sounds of a life or death struggle going on a few feet away. There's a small fly burning out the last of its short life's energies in a futile attempt to fly through the glass of a window pane. The whining wings tell a poignant story of the fly's strategy. Try harder. So try harder. But it's not working. The frenzied effort offers no hope for survival, and ironically, the struggle is part of the trap. It is impossible for the fly to try hard enough to succeed at breaking through the glass. So how often are we trying to break through a glass window that we'll never be able to break through? If we're that fly, are we doing that now when we need to change our strategy? Are we working harder but not smart enough to get to the next step? Nevertheless, the little insect has staked its life on reaching its goal through raw effort and determination. This fly is doomed. It will die there on the windowsill. Across the room, 10 steps away, the door is open. 10 seconds of flying time, and this small creature could reach the outside world it seeks. With only a fraction of the effort now being wasted, it could be free of its self-imposed trap. The breakthrough possibility is there. It would be so easy. How often do we get stuck in that trap? We keep repeating, and that's Albert Einstein's quote. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. Is it time to look at things differently? Are you open to try? You know, I had to learn that it's okay to learn something new. Keep digging in and understand it. Know it, like it, and this is Chris Nagel's statement. Know it, like it, and understand it, and then move forward with it. I wouldn't want somebody to move forward with something that they didn't know, like, or understand, but I would hope that they would be willing to dig into something to find out if there's something better so that they're not the fly that's hitting the glass window. Why doesn't the fly try another approach? Something dramatically different. How did it get so locked in on the idea that this particular route and determined effort offer the most promise of success? What logic is there in continuing until death to seek a breakthrough with more of the same? Back to Albert Einstein's quote, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. I'm 10 years into this journey of weight loss. I constantly change movement, exercises, foods. I don't eat anything. I mean, every year or 2 years, I'm changing up everything. I'm very different than I was before, and I try very hard. And there are times that there are moments, but I try very hard to train. And I hated this when people said this, but try to train myself that food is just fuel. I don't want to get attached to it in other ways because that causes me a problem. So I'm trying not to keep hitting my head against the glass window because I know what happens if I keep hitting that window. I want to take those few steps, those 10 steps, and go through the door. No doubt this approach makes sense to the fly. Regrettably, it's an idea that will kill it. If it keeps hitting the window, it's never going to make it through. The fly doesn't have the strength to break through that glass pane. Trying harder isn't necessarily the solution to achieving more. It may not offer any real promise for getting you what you want out of life. Sometimes, in fact, it's a big part of the problem. If you stake your hopes for a breakthrough on trying harder than ever, you may kill your chances for success, and that's Price Pritchard. And I often wonder, and I know there were times in my life I kept trying harder and harder and harder, and I didn't get the breakthrough I was looking for. And I wonder how many of us aren't getting the breakthrough that we're looking for because we're trying harder with the same thing that we think we know. We're not looking for that other change. You know, there might be a better approach to an illness, or a better approach to eating healthier, or a better approach to any problem in our life. But if we continue doing what we've always seen and not research or investigate or dig in a little, we may not find out that just a couple steps away, there's a better opportunity. And for me, I found that to be true. Like I said, I've attended 22 masterminds. I've written a book. I've actually become, or in the process of becoming, a practitioner for the IBC process, which is taking back control of your finances through the infinite banking process. Like I said, just direct message me. I'd be happy to help you take the next steps. But I've learned that there's so much more to life, and that it would have been heartbreaking if I'd been called home and I hadn't given myself a chance to live life differently, and maybe to help push things forward for this world, so that my legacy when I leave is that I helped other people find a different way to live this life. I say now that when I first had my surgery, I was hoping for 10 years off the bench, and that if I got called home after 10 years, at least I had some enjoyment of my adult life. And now I always say, Grim Reaper, you better get one amazing hoverboard, because my plan is it's going to go for a very long time. I'm going to slide into home plate. God's going to give me a high five, and he's going to say, nicely done. You might have waited till late in the game, but you didn't disappoint. Well done. And that's really my hope for all of you. Is there something that you've been hitting you're the fly hitting that window pane, and you keep hitting it and keep hitting it? Is it time to look for a different approach? I know it's scary sometimes to change, but now I'm trying to look at change as an exciting thing. It's an opportunity for a breakthrough. And when I look at it as that opportunity for a breakthrough, beautiful things happen. I write a book. I find a process that helps me to live my life in a better way. And I attend 22 events since 2021, meeting some amazing people that are doing amazing things, that are always offering a little pointer, a little hint to help me try to make my life better. So that's my hope for you, is that something I say sparks something in you, and that you can reach for more. Because my goal is always that we find more in our lives. So I will end this with a quote from Bill Gates, because this one spoke to me. I'll share a couple of these again. Again, this is work smarter, not harder. And then it was, efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. But this Bill Gates one really kind of hit me. It says, Bill Gates, this is Bill Gates speaking. I choose a lazy person. I choose a lazy person to do a hard job, because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. Bill Gates. And that's a juicy one. And I'm going to say it again because I kind of hesitated. I choose a lazy person to do a hard job, because a lazy person will find it easy to reconnect. So I will let you guys get back to it. But thank you for being here. And again, don't be the fly that's hitting the window pane. Be that person that is looking for a different avenue. It really does get easier the more you do it. I am so grateful that I finally stopped trying to live the way I thought I was supposed to, the way it was done in the past. There are better ways if we're open to checking and to learning. And it's never a case that you go blindly into it. You go into it to educate, to learn, to know, to like, to understand. And then when you find that better avenue, and you find that you met some amazing people at 22 events, when you write a book, and when you learn a new way to handle your finances, you find out it was probably the best gift you could have ever given yourselves. So thank you. I'll talk to you again tomorrow, and have a wonderful night.